All right, good evening, everyone. Before we start the meeting tonight, we have a few interviews to conduct, which we'll run through fairly quickly. But we'll go as the order is presented on the agenda. First up, we have Carol Craig, looking to be appointed to the Conservation Commission. Carol, come on up.
Push the button and turn red. On the right.
Button on the right, there you go. You got it.
Got it. All right.
right. Well, thank you for your interest.
Thank you.
And we received your application, but if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, why you think you'd be a good fit for the commission, and if you've been following it all, maybe some of the challenges you see ahead for them or some successes that they're working on. But go ahead.
Sure. I've been a science and math teacher for the last 24 years, 17 of which I was overseas, but I've had a house out here in South Kingstown for many years, since the 50s, so it predates me. I'm born in 1960, and my first degree is in forestry resource management. And then in my mid-30s, I went to URI in engineering, which was environmental engineering. And then in the late 90s, I got my master's in education. So I started to teach. My entire life, I was in the first Earth Day in 1970 as a kid in Scouts, and I have been following conservation. I'm a member of many organizations. It's something I do really frequently, probably 3 or 4 times a week. I'm in Zoom meetings all over the world doing different things with the Third Act and NRDC and Poor People's Campaign, which is fighting all kinds of social justice things. And I saw that you guys meet once a month, and I said, you know what? I could do this job. I'm somebody who knows a lot about the information. I love the land trusts. Again, I'm down in Green Hill, so I'm driving through our beautiful areas all the time, and I think I'd be a really positive addition to our commission. So,
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. I think you'd fit in very well. You got some good experience.
Yeah,
Any questions for Carol?
that's it.
All right,
huh?
thank you.
And I got to work in the morning. I hope you don't mind. I'm going to cut out. Thank you for picking me first.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have Joanne Blessing to be reappointed to the Recreation Commission. Joanne, welcome.
Thank you.
And we'll use this opportunity for you to keep us in tune. What's happening at the Rec Commission?
A lot of good things. The Rec Commission's a really well-run department. Terry Murphy does an amazing job. Lenka and, excuse me, Rex Eberle also. I think we have some of the finest parks in Rhode Island. They're very well kept. The community really enjoys them. I've served on the commission since 2006, I believe, like 18 years. I think I can provide some balance. I want to say I used to be one of the younger people on the commission, but maybe I'm giving a different perspective now. I don't have young kids who are playing in the parks, but part of our mission is to provide passive recreation as well and balance it with the active recreation. We've got a really nice balance here in South Kingstown of open land, that passive hiking trails and passive recreation, as well as, all the, there's a lot of stuff going on with making sure we have enough pickleball courts currently. That's a hot topic on the Rec Commission. We've got Old Mountain Park that we're really enjoying renovating and looking forward to that, as well as Saugatucket Park. I feel like we do a really good job making sure the parks are updated and taken well care of, and so that they're enjoyed by the whole community.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Joanne?
Is there anything that you could tell the community that we might not know, like little hidden secret or something special that you've learned in serving?
I would say there's a lot of opportunities within this community to find little pieces of land that we actually have available to us, and we tend to go to the same parks that are in our neighborhood, but there are parks in other areas that you might not live in that you could really enjoy and get a lot out of. So keep exploring, keep looking at our booklets. We have all the parks listed and keep trying new things.
Thank you, Joanne. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
All right, last up, we have William Rosen, looking to be reappointed to the Zoning Board of Review.
Good evening.
Good evening. So, William, or Bill,
Bill, yeah.
what's happening on the zoning board? Fill us in. How you like it?
It's interesting. I enjoy it. The best part of it is that I get to go out and see things in South Kingstown I've never seen before. The zoning board is doing great. It's finally got 8 members on it, 3 alternates and 5 permanent members. And I've been on there 5 or 6 years now, and I've learned a lot. The one thing that I think that is not known in this community is how many ordinances there are, how thick the book is, and how a lot of people put up a lot of stuff that they don't come before the zoning board to get approval of. And sometimes that rankles me in particular, since I do a lot of walking around and riding around the town looking at different things. But most of the petitions that we have come before us are ones that look like they're trying to make improvements in their properties, and that's good. Okay?
All right, yeah. Any questions for Bill? Go ahead.
Not a question, just a compliment. You obviously take it very seriously. Part of the notes that we got was that you've attended 76 out of the 77 meetings since you were appointed. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow, that's very impressive. Thank you very much for
Well,
your
now-
diligence.
Now that I'm getting along in years, maybe I won't attend as many. Who knows?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
have a good evening.
Thank
Thank you, Bill. All right, that completes our interviews, and we're going to jump right into the regular session now. First order of business, as always, is the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. All right, next on the agenda is the land acknowledgement statement, which I will read. The town of South Kingstown pays homage to the indigenous people and land on which the town is now located. With this acknowledgement serve as a reminder of our ongoing efforts to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Narragansett tribe whose land and water we benefit from today. All right, next we have the roll call.
Council President McEntee?
Here.
Council Vice President Marin?
Here.
Councilmember Bergner?
Here.
Councilmember Alley?
Here.
Councilmember Sweet?
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you. All right, that's going to bring us to item 5, approval of minutes of previous meetings.
Motion to approve.
Item 5.
Item 5A and B.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. It's going to bring us to item 6, the consent agenda.
Motion to approve item 6, the entire consent agenda.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. It's going to bring us to item 7, licenses. A is a resolution granting a miscellaneous permit to conduct the annual Run for Kerry 4-mile Memorial Road Race on Sunday, August 4, 2024 at 9 a.m. to the Kerry Lynn Bassett Run for Kerry Scholarship Fund, Inc. of Wakefield, Rhode Island, subject to the execution of a hold harmless agreement indemnifying the town and issuance of a certificate of insurance naming the town as an additional insured in the amount specified by the finance director. Application by Kathy Bassett. Kathy?
Hello, we're back again.
Welcome.
Thank you. So we're here to get a permit for this year's Run for Kerry. It will be our 21st year. As many of you know, Carrie was our daughter. She passed away in April of 2001 while a freshman at LaSalle University from bacterial meningitis. She was studying to be a teacher, and she loved to run. So our family created the race to honor her memory. We give out scholarships at South Kingston High School. After this year's sports banquet, we will have given out $80,000 in her name. This year's race is on Sunday the 4th, like you said. And we look forward to seeing a lot of people. We appreciate all the local businesses and running community from town, from South Kingston, Narragansett, and all over the state.
Excellent.
Thank
Should be
you.
another great one.
Thank you. We hope so.
Any questions?
So I challenged myself, it was on my birthday, and I ran the Run for Carrie. I'm just hoping that you change the course, because mile
No.
3, mile 3 up the hill is
I know,
really,
sorry.
it's
a big
really
no.
awesome. It was a great experience. From the minute you check in, I just want to tell everyone, your whole family is
Thank you.
doing the race check-in, handing out the numbers. It's just a really lovely, family-oriented space, and I really just appreciated the opportunity to run it with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now our grandkids are
Yeah.
running and passing out and volunteering, and it's very rewarding.
It's really awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your family turning the tragedy of your daughter's death into something that gives back to the community and her memory.
Thank you.
It's very important, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Motion to approve
sorry.
item 7A.
Second?
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes.
Thank you.
Look forward to another good one.
Thank you.
All right, it's going to move us to item 7B, a resolution granting a temporary mass gathering permit to conduct the Wakefield Music Festival on Saturday, May 25, 2024, rain date of Sunday, May 26, 2024, from 2 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. to the Contemporary Theater Company of Main Street, Wakefield, application by Chris Simpson. Chris, welcome.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here again.
So, you're always doing good things down there. Reggae Fest was a success. We got another one here. I love that you're doing these more frequently.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it isn't the intention of Main Street or the Phil's or the Contemporary Theater Company to make this a constant event, but we keep getting positive feedback that people love the excuse to come out, gather, that they see old friends. It's almost like a high school reunion every time we throw one of these events for everybody who's from around here, and the businesses are filling up. I think we have a good formula now to make sure that there's adequate parking, that we're not closing the street for anything beyond the one Oktoberfest every year, which is the biggest one, and this would fall right in with that. It's from 2 to 10:30. It's confined predominantly to our spaces at Phil's and the CTC, and it brings local musicians as well as some statewide acts and larger acts to all come together and perform for our community. So I think it's a good thing, and we're excited to be doing it again.
Awesome. Any questions for Chris? All right, do we hear a motion?
Motion to approve item 7B.
Second?
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes.
Thank
Chris,
you all
good
very
luck.
much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
See you there.
Yes, sir.
We'll be there.
All right, that's going to bring us to item 8, new business. A is a resolution in support of funding for permanent safety barriers on Rhode Island's bridges over Narragansett Bay as follows. Do I hear a motion in support of this?
Motion
Motion.
to-
Oh, go
You
ahead.
can go, Patty.
Motion to approve item 8A. Do I have to read this whole thing?
No.
Would you like to read it?
Okay, yeah. A resolution in support of funding for permanent safety barriers on Rhode Island's bridges over Narragansett Bay as follows. Resolution in support of funding for permanent safety barriers on Rhode Island's bridges over Narragansett Bay. Whereas the town of South Kingstown recognizes that suicides are devastating and extend our sympathies to those affected by the loss, and whereas suicides from our state bridges over Narragansett Bay have affected our community since the time bridges were built, and we seek ways to make our bridges safe from potential suicides, and whereas the bridges erected by the Army Corps of Engineers on the Bourne and Sagamore bridges have been shown to greatly reduce access to the bridge railings as a means for suicide, and whereas most recently, safety netting installed on Florida's Skyway Bridge is showing great promise for reducing suicides from that bridge, and Whereas we recognize the railings on the bridges over Narragansett Bay, including the Jamestown, Pell, Saconnet, and Mount Hope bridges, do not extend approximately 42 inches and are not tall enough or designed to keep persons from going over the bridge railing as a means to suicide. And whereas according to statistics from the Rhode Island Department of Health from 2012 to 2021, there were 1,199 suicides in Rhode Island, of which 54 were bridge-related, many of which were from bridges located in Bristol, Kent, Newport, and Washington counties. And whereas in recent years, the Rhode Island General Assembly appropriated funding to the Rhode Island Turnpike and Bridge Authority for engineering studies for the Jamestown, Mount Hope, Pell, and Saconnet bridges, but we need to make the installation of safety barriers a reality on all 4 bridges. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Town Council of the Town of South Kingstown urges the Rhode Island House, Senate, and House Finance Committees and the Rhode Island General Assembly to support the legislative efforts to install suicide prevention safety barriers on Rhode Island bridges over Narragansett Bay, and be it further resolved that the town clerk is hereby authorized to send a copy of this resolution to Honorable K. Joseph Shikarchi, Speaker of Rhode Island House of Representatives, Honorable Dominic J. Ruggiero, President of the Rhode Island Senate, and the members of the Rhode Island General Assembly representing the town of South Kingstown.
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I do have just a couple of things to say. I'm going to vote in favor, but I have concerns. The reference to the engineering studies, those have not been completed. With respect to the Pell and Jamestown Bridge, the studies are not. That study is not going to be done until May of 2025. And with respect to Mount Hope and Saconnet, the study isn't going to be done until next month. I don't know that the legislature is actually going to vote on this, but there's not a whole lot of information here beyond the statistics from Department of Health and the resolution itself. I think we need more information, but it's also the legislature's job to flesh that out. It's certainly an important issue.
All right, any other thoughts? All right, all in favor? Aye. All right, that passes. Thank you, Patty. All right, it's going to bring us to item B. Mark Russo, come on up.
Good evening. This is a resolution requesting a bid award to Stefano Brothers Concrete Coating to install, well, first of all, remove and then install the epoxy flooring at the highway garage. That's just on the administrative side of the building. It's not going to be in the garages at all. And that's in an amount not to exceed $47,000. Of that amount, this is $7,593 in a moisture barrier that we may or may not need. We won't know until we pull the floor up. So it could come in at a little bit less than that. It also comes with a limited lifetime manufacturer warranty, which is huge, and a 5-year contractor warranty.
All right, thank you, Mark.
Sure.
Any questions? All right, do I hear a motion? All right,
Motion.
Go ahead.
Motion to approve item 8B.
Second?
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just a comment, thank you for the memo. And I remember when we went on the tour of the building, it certainly looked like you could use an upgrade to the floor.
Definitely, yes.
It's going to be like a basketball court in that building, huh, Mark?
Just need the basketball hoops. Yeah.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, that passes. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
All right. C and D, Chief Moynihan, come on up.
Good evening. This is an award recommendation for 2 new police vehicles. So they're split into 3 different awards. One would be for the purchase of the 2 vehicles. Another would be for the upfitting of it with the extra equipment that has to be included with that, to include graphics. And the third is for the computers, the tablets that get placed in the vehicles. So the vehicles are part of our vehicle budgeted amount. That's the account that it'll be from. The computers come from our computer equipment account, and then we anticipate a surplus in the safety and safety equipment and safety materials that would offset the additional cost of the upfitting for the extra equipment that needs to be put into these vehicles.
All right, thank you, Chief. Any questions for the Chief? All right, I think we could take C and D together here. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve items 8C and D.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, that passes.
Great, thank
Thank you, Chief. All right, it's going to bring us to item E, review of the debt service and property tax implications of the $150 million school bond referendum as requested by Councilmember Bergner. Brian Sylvia. Can we give an intro, Deb?
Yeah,
You're
thank
up.
you.
Go ahead.
While he's getting ready, take your time. I just wanted to always take the opportunity when we have a public meeting to talk about the big bond that we're going to be, that we are voting on and will continue to vote on through May 7th. So it's great to have the community educated about what the project is, what the project will cost, and allow them to make a decision that meets their needs. So just wanted to take the opportunity because, well, we'll meet next Monday. We might not have the same opportunity with Brian. This looks familiar.
So did you just want me to go through these slides again? Is there any, I just didn't know if there were any particular questions before I get into this, or?
We might have questions after
Okay.
you present.
Sure. So this is, I apologize, I don't remember when I showed these slides originally. I was going to lead with that, but I've been before you too many times talking about the bond.
The last public meeting we had 2 weeks ago.
Okay, thank you. So here's a list of the assumptions on the high school bond. Again, first being the proposed, is the amount itself. Along the top where you see assumption proposed $150 million bond. As you've heard, that is a capped amount. That is a capped at $150 million. That is the amount not to exceed. So that is the first assumption. We're making the assumption that we'll be spending $150 on this project. It could come in under that. And we'll know more on that as we get into June, but that is the first assumption where we are making the assumption that the issuance amount would be $150 million. The next being the amortization schedule. Currently, we are running scenarios where the amortization is funded, the bond is funded over 20 years. The interest rate is assumed currently at 3.5%. Of the issuance amount of $150 million, the town is assuming a bond issuance in May 2028 with principal and interest payments beginning in fiscal year 2029. Ride reimbursement is currently assumed at 52.5% on eligible project costs, which is $117,672,245. The medium assessed value of a single-family property is $468,300 currently. Growth on the tax base of 9.98% is assumed for statistical revaluation years, which is based on the average of the last 4 that were conducted by the town. Growth on the tax base of 15.27% on full revaluation years is based on the last 2 full revaluations. And finally, growth on the tax base of $35 million is assumed on non-revaluations like the year we're in right now. This slide represents bond-related expenses only. So this slide is not taking into account any potential growth in operating expenses of the town or schools, or for that matter, any additional bonds. This is only showing growth related to the proposed $150 million high school bond. Within this, I'm highlighting the line that is highlighted. As we noted, the median assessed is $468,300, so I'm highlighting that line, but we can certainly speak to any of them. That is for what is assumed for fiscal year 2025. That is based on the rate that is currently proposed at $11.13 for fiscal year 2025. The taxes would be $5,212 for each of the next 5 years. So when you go into fiscal year 26, that would be our first year of bond anticipation notes, or bands. Those, the bands in that year, it is assumed at this time that the bands would constitute interest of $1 million, I should have that on my fingertips. $1 million, well, the debt service would be going up next year that we would have to budget for, $1,179,708. And that would be the growth in, and that, with that year, you're seeing growth in that year from 5,000, again, for that median assessed property, taxes would be going from that 5,212 to 5,265. The following year, in fiscal year 2027, you're seeing the jump to an assumed property tax for that median assessed of $5,323. That is based on, once again, year 2 of bond anticipation notes, where the debt would climb once again to an increase of $1,231,093. And the last year of bond anticipation notes would be in fiscal year 2027. And, I'm sorry, fiscal year 2028. Yes, fiscal year 2028. 2025, we don't have any bands. So the 3 bands would be 26, 27, and 28. So for the median assessed, the taxes would go there to $5,374. That is based on the year 3 bond anticipation notes, which would require an increase in spending for debt-related expenses of another $1,127,471. Year 4 of the rollout plan, this would actually be the first year of the principal and interest payments on the bond. However, we'd be taking down the actual amount due or obligations of the town by using the balance of our fund balance for the debt service fund. So that is lowering our obligations that year. To the taxes needed to raise would be an additional $821,258. That would bring the taxes to the median assessed to $5,401. And finally, fiscal year 2030, that will be the second year of the paying down the bond amortization. So after fiscal year 2030, there would be 18 years left on the bond, and that would be the first year of full principal and interest payments. And this fiscal year 2030 would represent the high water mark for debt service of the town. From that point on, the debt for this proposed bond would be fully encumbered, and at that point, you're going to start to see in the out years very small decreases in debt obligations as other debts go down that are currently on the books of the town. That fiscal year 2030 would result in a need of $2,283,613, and the tax bill for the median assessed would go to $5,530. Overall, that is an increase on the rollout period of $318. Overall, that is a levy increase projected of 8.32% over that time frame, or an average over the 5 years. This is an average. Some years are higher than others. That fiscal year 2030 is, as I noted, I gave you the numbers. That is the high water one. That's the 2.2 million. So this is an average of 1.66 per year. Fiscal year 2030 looks to be the one with the most pain at this point. Yes.
sorry, when I multiply 318, which is what we say is going to be the increase for the next 15 years, that doesn't add to $9,400. So how do you, people calculate and,
Yep.
so, how do you get to 94 change when it's 318 times 15?
Sure. So, again, within this rollout period where we're not taking on, and we're not assuming any additional expenses of the town. So expenses of the town, expenses of the school department, existing debt, in this scenario, all remaining the same. We're just taking on the bond debt, and at the same time, tax revenue or the tax base of the town is going up. So we're assuming growth in the non-reval years of 35 million, and in the reval years, we're assuming growth of, again, we're going to have 2 statistical revals within our rollout period, where we're assuming 9.9% growth in our tax base. So that is pushing down the overall, obviously our obligations for those operations for school and town are remaining the same, but the actual percentage related to those expenses are going down as our tax base goes up. So the overall tax increase would be the 318 net when you factor in the lower amounts for related expenses for town and school operations, whereas the debt is going up. Now, the column, the orange column where you see, for the median assessed, where you see the 9,468, that is looking at just the cost of the bond and not factoring in those other expenses that are getting pushed down because we're not assuming any growth in this scenario.
But if you multiply 318 for years 16, 17, 18, all the way up, 6 through 20,
Yes,
it doesn't multiply out to that. It multiplies to 4,500.
correct.
So where does the other, because we've been saying at other meetings, it's going to rise to 318, and you're going to be at 318 for the rest of the bond, and those 15 years, the calculations don't come to 9,400.
Correct, because the 318 is totaling town how I've split the rate basically in this analysis by town operations, school operations, and then the debt. And with the town and school remaining constant, those are being pushed down as they're being spread further amongst the tax base as the tax base goes up. So those expenses per bill are going down slightly where the bond is going up. The net is the 318. The actual cost associated with the bond would be the 9,468, so it is a higher amount, but you're having operating costs being further spread through revals, through additional growth in the town, that's pushing down the operating costs of the town.
So Brian, how did you get to it? Just tell us how you quantified it.
Yeah, if it helps, I don't know how it's going to show. This is kind of a summary version of another slide. I don't know if that'll help, if that's.
Well, yeah, because I feel like the previous meeting, we said it's going to ramp to 318,
Yep.
and you're going to pay about 318, and
Right.
then we do the math, and it doesn't come out that way.
That's
It's really,
well,
it's 475 or something like that.
So under this scenario where no expenses go up, that would be the tax bill. It would be a 318 impact on the tax bill for no other expenses going up in the town. The overall cost of the bond over the 20-year or 23 years, 3 years of the bands and 20-year amortization is the 9,468. This scenario where no other costs are increasing, you're getting a slight push down on the operating expenses as the tax base goes up, and that's where you're getting the 318, lower than what you're expecting to see.
So it's 318 for years 1 through 5, and then it's 4 change for the next 15.
The bond itself, when
We're
there's.
only on the bond one, right?
Yes, this is just bond. The bond, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. What was your?
I took one accounting class in college, to be very honest, so I can only do the simplest calculations, but when you have 9468 and you divide it by 15, it doesn't come out to be 318.
Right, and one is showing the impact on the tax base, I'm sorry, on the tax bill for these various properties. The yellow column is showing the impact on the tax bill with no additional growth. This is where your taxes would go. The other is the actual cost of the bond for those properties over the 23 years, the 3 years of bans and the 20-year amortization. So one, again, the yellow column is being pushed down by the tax base going up.
Right. I hear you. I think I understand you, but it still comes back to years 6 through 20. If I divide that out, it does not come out to be 300.
That's correct.
94, 68, divided by 15 years.
Well, it should be 20, divided by 20. So total bond term.
$6,600.
It's 63, it's $631. So it's so the slide is actually very confusing, and I felt like it was clearer. And so now I feel like it's twice what we posted of $300.
Okay.
It's really $600 a year for the years 5 through 20. Go ahead.
I understand the point. Let me try and take another shot. The way you've got this set up, we've been given to understand that the average taxpayer by year 5 is paying $318 more per year, and then that stays level with respect to the bond only.
Bond only, correct.
Okay. If you take that 318 and play it out to the end of the bond period, it doesn't come up to $9,468.
It does not.
Why?
So that, again, under this scenario where no other costs go up, one is showing the total impact on the bond, the $9,468. One is showing the impact, projected impact on the tax bill with no other costs increasing, because those other costs are being spread amongst the growing tax base.
I understand what you're saying, the growing tax base, but that would mean more people were paying it, so it would be less.
Right.
Right. I'm just trying to, I can only think very simply on this topic. So I don't understand. You're doing a great job of helping me. I don't, it's twice as expensive as I thought it was 2 weeks ago to the average person. Because if I'm going to pay $9,400 over 15 years, it's $630, which is twice as much money as $318, give or take $1 or $2. So how did we get so confused in the presentation?
It's almost like there should be a different column in between those last two, so that the average taxpayer knows by year 5 I'm paying $318 more. And that amount for me is going to stay the same for the next 15 years?
18 after this.
18.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because of the 3 years of the bans, sorry. So 18 more years. But if you play out 318 times 18, it doesn't come up to 9,000, and that's the point that I think is confusing.
Let me ask a few follow-ups here.
Yeah.
Brian. All right, looking at the column in the yellow, and we've obviously walked through this several times, previous meetings. The column in yellow represents the amount that the tax bill will increase as over the 5-year period, cumulative at the 5-year mark as compared to now.
Correct.
So the increase in the tax bill, if we're looking at the median assessed home value, will be $318 cumulative over the 5 years. And the increase is solely to cover the annual debt service related to the high school project.
Correct.
So column orange, how I believe it's represented here, is the cumulative amount of your tax bill over the life of the bond that will be applied toward the debt service payments. Is that
Correct.
right?
Yes.
So how is it that if the cumulative increase over the first 5 years is 318 and then remains flat thereafter until the bond matures, how do we get to this 9,400? That number cannot be correct to me. If the annual amount of the tax bill is 318 at the 5-year mark, solely to be applied to cover the debt service, and that's the amount for every year thereafter until the bond matures, how is it that you're getting to this 9,400 number?
Can I pull up the other
Yeah, sure.
details? Okay.
It must be that this orange column includes figures beyond the amount of the tax bill that is used solely to cover the debt service costs. That's the only way that could be.
We need magnifying glasses.
Yeah. I can do that. Two.
Right, right. Council President, so
Yes.
I might be able to explain it in plain English if you'd like me to.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
So if you look at the initial, cost that we were projecting a month, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, 5 months ago, it was $426 per taxpayer at that 468,000 medium income. We kept giving that number. Your taxes will go up on the bond only, $426 at the full, when that bond is fully issued. We since lowered it to 318. So it was 426, came down to 318. The reason it came down to 318 was because Brian calculated the statistical and the full revalue appreciations on an estimate for the next 20 years. So that actually works in the favor of the taxpayer, because every time we do a reval, except for once, it usually goes up by a certain amount, and that additional growth in the town offsets what people are paying as their houses go up in value. But once again, let me go back to the 426. That was the initial estimate we had for a person who has a median-sized house, $426 per year when the bond was fully issued. Now it's down to 318. It came down. So the true cost is 9,400, whatever it is, that last column, the orange column. But what is most important is the resident will pay the 318. 318 is the number that your taxes will go up if you own a house at that $468,000 amount. So if you include the growth of the town in the next 20 years as an estimate, that's why it's so dangerous when we do this, that we're trying to project 20 years out. But once again, most important, 318 is the number. That's the number the taxpayer will pay with that valuation of their house at 468.
That's the best I can explain it.
Microphone, Greg, microphone.
How can you explain the difference between the 426 and the 318?
So,
So when the 426 was calculated, there was no estimate was used on what the revals would be every 3 years, and the additional money that the town would be collecting towards the bond. So we were using 426 for the longest time as the cost, but really, because the revals are making your house worth more, especially over the next 20 years, it has lowered the amount to 318. The bottom line is it's 318, that's the correct number. The last column is confusing though.
So you're not talking new taxable property, you're talking about the increase in the reevaluations.
That's correct,
But when you do the reevaluations, you lower the tax rate to...
That's correct.
yes,
And he did estimate that as well.
That's how you're getting
Yes.
to it?
yes.
Okay.
So there's no confusion again. 318 is the number. If you own a house that's the median value in this town, 468, your taxes will go up $318 per year. So it'll go like this in the beginning, then it levels off for the 15 years. First 5 years, it goes up 60, 120, 180, you know, and then it gets to that 318 mark, and then it levels off for the next 15 years. Sorry for the confusion.
Thank you, Jim.
It doesn't make it any less confusing because Brian was just saying it's $9,468 for the average home. That's what you're going to pay. That's your share if you're the median price home. So it doesn't add to that. And at Greg's question, as I understood it, was you're not making up the difference because it's $600 or $600 to get to the $9,400. You're not making it up from new construction values of houses and their tax contribution. It's not clear. I hear what you're saying. They're just totally different facts. Like, that's a fact, and then it's still a 94.
So talking to Brian, what I would do is just take that last column right out for now and look at the 318 and then just multiply that times, 15 years, and then whatever the $60 per month is on top of that. So maybe you can just come up with that number now so there's no confusion.
So it's about $318, give or take $1, like, we're not talking hundreds of dollars difference.
No. So this is, again, on this scenario, nothing else goes up, it would be, the tax bill would be going up to 318. Once you get to year 5, it'd go up, it would stay at 315 for the balance of the 18 years.
If the interest rate doesn't drop down to the 3.5, which we're all hoping for, or lower, if it comes in at, say, 3.75, does that make much of a difference?
It'll make a difference. I haven't checked in on a 3.75, but if it came in at 4.5, say instead of 3.5, it went up 1%. Payments would be going up approximately $700,000. Almost $630. $630,000 a year.
In that same scenario,
In that same
average,
scenario,
okay.
it would be if it was 4.5. Conversely, if it was, say, the rates lowered at 2 to 2.5, it would go down almost $630,000 as well. So that did have a range on the rates in that regard. I didn't do 3.75.
So, very rough math. $7 million is what our share of the principals and the interest.
Correct.
So if it went up 600,000, it's like, whatever that is, 8 or 9%?
Mhm.
It could swing either way. So
Yes.
if it was, what Greg is saying, 325 or 4, it's going to go up
If the rate were to go
It
up.
could
but
go
the
up
rate-
some,
the rate has
likewise
been-
it could go down.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, the rate has been consistent so far since it went, again, when it spiked in the September, October timeframe, and then it came down in November. Since then, it's remained constant, where we're showing the 3.5.
Okay.
Is there a requirement to refinance if, the bond if the rates change? I seem to remember that.
Yes. There's, I'm not sure, we have to be so many years into the bond. I don't think we can refinance, say, a year after the bond is issued, but there is a number of years. But yes, we're actually required to refinance if the rate drops.
Right, if the rate drops, by how much? Do you know, like 1 point or? One point? Oh, yeah, what's the trigger? That's what I was just curious.
I'm not sure on that right now, but I can check on that.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
great. Thank you.
That's something too, as I should mention, I'll check in with our financial advisors every year before budget time, and is there any of our bonds that are eligible for refunding, worthwhile refunding? This would obviously, if passed, if issued, would be added to the list. We would certainly look into that every year before budget time. Is there anything that's eligible to go through a refunding and refinance? And this would be one as well.
Hey, Brian, a change of interest rates of 0.25%, that would result in how much of a change in the financing costs here? In interest?
1%. If it went up 1% or down 1%, it's approximately $630,000 either way on an annual basis.
Okay. So if the interest rate goes up 1%, it's additional 630,000.
630 on an annual basis, yes.
If it
And
goes down, we'd save that much.
Correct.
Okay.
With the average 1.66 per year, assuming the entire town budget will be going up over 4%, do we have to get approval each year from the state?
Under this scenario, again, this is just a scenario at
Yeah,
this time,
yeah.
but under this scenario, I believe we had year 2030, really the high water mark for the town. That year, we were going over 4%, and we would need to seek a waiver if that comes to fruition. I'm sorry, actually, no. Under this scenario where nothing else goes up, it's just the bond, we would not be exceeding the 4%. On a scenario where the town operations go up 1.7% or the schools go up, those scenarios, the one with the 1.7, fiscal year 2030 would be over the 4%, and we would have to seek a waiver, or, adjustments would have to be made. Under this scenario where there's no other changes, it's just the bond, we don't have any years going over the 4%.
But assuming that the school will be asking for some type of increase, and also the town will be asking for something, there's a strong possibility that it will be over the 4. So making those assumptions that the school is going to ask for an increase, the municipal side will ask for an increase, will we have to get the approval for each year, making that assumption?
Yes, that would be on a case-by-case.
Okay.
I would just like to sort of go over some facts that were discussed on Saturday at the town hall meeting at the high school. So one of the things that we discussed, or actually the town manager brought up, was that while many of our estimates have used is it a keystone, or I don't know what you call it, but the 1.7 has been like the standard that we've assumed our taxes would go up. I would just like to make it known to the community that this year, because of the real strict attention that the council and the town manager and the CFO, we're only seeing an increase of, 1.27 this year? 1.29.
1.29.
So I do want to reassure people that we're looking at everything from a very conservative sort of worst case scenario. And while, of course, over the 20 years, there is certainly the possibility that the budget will go up. I would say that there are, different ideas of what's going to happen with the bond potentially passing, and a lot of these scenarios need to take into consideration the reduced footprint, reduced expenses associated, potential more students coming. So while there is a potential for adding cost to the school budget, there is also a lot of factors that lead me to be optimistic that we can continue level funding for a period of time. So that's it.
Thank you, Patty. All right, any thoughts on this slide?
Go to the next one.
Okay.
I don't know if this was particularly helpful to anybody, because,
There's a lot to it.
yeah,
Yeah. I'm in the yellow section, towards the bottom, you can see where the town and school, that's where the reductions, the negative 31 and the negative 87, 67? I can't see it myself. But that's where you're seeing the net of the 318 towards the bottom in the yellow. The next page is really just this is the full bore on the rollout. So this goes to the 2048 when the bond would be paid off.
so the debt obligations, right, that column.
Yes.
Right? It's a bold one near the bottom.
Yes.
Debt, so 86, 165, 246, 320, 373, 522, 436.
Yes.
None of those are 318, or even close to the average of 318.
Well, in the yellow column, if you net those three numbers above the line, they come out to 318. That's how you get the change over that 5-year period.
86, 165, if I average those?
The negative 31, the negative,
On the first page.
negative 31, negative 87, and the 436, they net out to 318. That's
Okay.
the overall growth in the tax base, tax bill, rather.
Right, and then the next year is,
That's when you see it start to go down. So in fiscal 2030, you'll see the obligations for debt at 522, and then you see in the next year it starts to go down, and that's where you see 516. And so it does, and I should say that line, that line right there, the debt, that is all debt obligations. So that is current debt as well. The line at the bottom, that line along the bottom, that is the actual cost associated with just the bond, and that's where you saw the 9,468.
hold on. So the numbers, that's debt, the line that says debt obligations, right?
Mhm.
I see the 318, 3187, 436, 318. So then the numbers to the right, 516, 517, those are the total debt obligations for both the
Current,
town.
existing, and the proposed bond.
So that would be the increase.
But those are starting to go down once you get past 2030.
Okay. I
Well,
don't see that they go down.
Well, in 2030, that debt obligations is at 522. Then in 2031, it goes to 516. 2031, 516. 2032, 517. 2033, 513, et cetera, and such. So the debt obligations starts to go down as it's fully rolled out in 2030, and then the obligations start to go down over time.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
But the payment stays the same.
Yeah, well, the obligations that's going down there really is our existing debt that's going down at that point.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. One, if I could, just one item that I think was helpful on Saturday that was raised. A question that's been asked quite a few times. If we don't go forward at this time, what would we get? What do we have? The one thing we did, this is saying all things remain equal. We've heard repeatedly if this project has delays, that there will be cost escalation. So I'm assuming the 150 million stays the same. But should this project not go forward and say we do another bond in a couple years, again, as of June, we're hearing there's no more bonuses, there's no more pay-go. So under this scenario, under the same project, if we were to move forward with this project in a couple of years where those don't exist, the town would be receiving less state aid, and state aid less than what we're receiving. We're projected to receive right now by $23,152,000. That's one thing. That's at just the same project at 35%.
And that would be-
So
that was one point-
$23 million it will cost us extra
Correct.
if we.
And that's saying this project comes in, I mean, we keep hearing the escalation, so I doubt that to be the case, but
Right, so if the voters reject the bill, so basically after June 30th, this project as it stands right now would cost the town $23 million more.
that's
A little bit
under
more.
how it's currently constituted. I mean, the state could change their mind down the line, but as of right now, when the bonuses run out and the state pay-go runs out, that would be the number, yes. That could certainly change it down the line, but as of right now, that would, yes.
Right.
One thing, and I hate to, the ride reimbursement, it's not, I'm seeing people post on social media that we're going to get $81 million back from the state. That's not the 55% on 117.
That's correct.
So when I calculate, we're only getting 55% back on 117, 117 million. And that is about 64 million, right?
We're getting, we are getting
I did my cheat
total of
calculator.
81 million. So we're getting pay-go of 9 and change, and then we're getting the annual debt service payments totaling about 71 million. So it comes out to 81 million.
But let's clarify that.
Yep.
We're talking two different sets of numbers here. All right. If we want to go 150 million and the number on the bond, and 117 is the cost of we could get reimbursed by RIDE, and you do that by, let's use 52.5, that's the number we always have been using. Comes out to 61, 62 million, around that,
71.
right? But then we started using principal and interest as the number. So the $150 million bond is $218 million in principal and interest. So therefore, now we have to calculate the reimbursement in principal and interest, which is $81 million. So it's 150. So Brian, just do the number at 52.5% of 117 million. I thought it was 61 million. 61 million. It's not 71, it's 61.
Correct.
All right. So $150 million bond, $117 million reimbursement, eligible for reimbursement. 52.5% of that comes out to about 61 million. $150 million bond, we're going to get 61 million back. The rest we have to come up with. If you do it the other way, principal and interest, the $150 million bond equates to 218 million by the time you pay it all off 20 years from now, and you'll get 81 million back on principal and interest. So we're really, people are using numbers to move whatever way they want, but those are the facts.
Is it the same?
It is. It's the same, it's just principal and interest. So it's like, do you want to figure it out on what we're borrowing on this day and worry about the principal and interest later, or do you want to figure out to every penny that we're going to owe after 20 years? All we're trying to do is present the facts, and we're asked all these questions, well, how much is a principal and interest? How much is a straight bond? So we give these numbers out, but what happens is people interpret them their own way, and they're putting out half the numbers. One way, when it benefits them, they put out this number. When it hurts them, they benefit, Right. So let's stick with let's just go over it again. $150 million bond. RIDE will reimburse us for $117 million towards the high school on the project we put forward. If we get the reimbursement of 52.5, which is very realistic, we will get $61 million reimbursed by the state. That's the number, all right? The other stuff is principal and interest. However you want to, whatever way you want to talk about it, we can do it, but those are the facts.
Well, what's the 23 million then? Where does that come in if we go down to 35%?
So the question came up at the last meeting, if this fails on May 7th, and we want to talk about another bond in 2 years, what does it mean? We have to make the assumption right now that the governor is not putting another $250 million bond out to subsidize the communities, give them more reimbursement. So we'd be getting 35% of the number, or less, okay? We'd be eligible for 35% of whatever we spend to get reimbursed. So Brian, you calculated the 23 million would be lost on the principal and interest, correct?
Right, so Patty, if we,
218.
so hang on, if the project is still 117, right, 35% RIDE gives us back is 40 million, almost 41 million. So currently as presented, 52.5%, we're going to get 61 million. You got, so there's 22, he's,
Right.
you know,
about
saying,
20 million.
yep. So
All right.
that we pay.
Now, the pay-go comes out of the 61 million, correct? It's
an
not
addition to.
above and beyond, it comes out
It
of
is above and
that.
beyond. The pay-go, yes.
The pay-
Currently, yes.
So then we'd be getting 68, well, 70 million?
Yes.
All right. Any other questions for Brian?
Nope.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Great work.
Thank you. Can you maybe add this slide to your financial considerations, since no one here can even really see it? Sorry.
Sure.
And maybe they'd want to. Thank you.
Can do.
All right, that's now going to bring us to the town manager's report.
I have two items: update on the school building committee, school facilities project, and school bond referendum. So on last Saturday was the second public forum. About 50 to 60 people attended. A lot of questions were asked. It went from 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And I think we did okay answering everyone's questions. A lot of questions in that group. So where do we stand now? On the school building committee, and Kate Massinatti's here, she's the chair of it. We'll meet on Thursday at 4 p.m. to go over an update on the construction manager selection process, go over public engagement, and to talk about the possibility of 2 more forums that the public can be involved in. One would be strictly online on Wednesday the 24th, and one would be a hybrid of online and in person on May 1st. So right now, there are the team that's been selected to look at the construction manager at risk process. There are 5 firms that submitted their request, and at this meeting on Thursday, we will discuss what that process is and let the team start really vetting these 5 firms. That's A. B is the property reval. Just a conversation about that, something totally separate than the school bond. So our tax assessor, Wendy Duarte, wanted me to bring this up because there's going to be vision appraisal. It's that time, every 3 years we get, a new process. So vision appraisal will start the 24, 25, 26 statistical reval. And so what does that mean? On May 3rd, letters will be going out to all the taxpayers saying that this process has started. And, we contracted with Vision Government Solutions to conduct the 24 statistical revaluation. It will start April 1st of 2024, it's already started, and will be completed on May 15th, 2025. And we'll reassess about 13,500 properties, residential and commercial. The sales analysis will start on June 1st of 2024 and run through January 21st of 25. And this is the review that Vision will do to determine what the reval of your individual properties will be. The only ones that could expect in-person visits by Vision are the homes that were sold in that time period. So and it won't even be knocking on your door, just they might pull in the yard, walk around your house and so forth. They will have a vision appraisal vehicle with some type of vest that says Vision Appraiser on it. If you have any questions at all, we'll put it on the website, call the tax assessor, and we'll verify anything that you want to do. Now, I'm going to go over the statistical. A lot of people ask this question: what is a statistical? What's a full reval? So every 9 years, there has to be a full reval in that. That means that's where they look at the homes, they look at the footprints, the floor plans, and all of that to make sure everything lines up. It's a company vision appraisal that the town hires and is used. So in 2018, 19, and 20, there was a statistical revaluation where the town, on average, went up about 15% in the total assessed properties. And right now, we're about 6.9 billion after the full. So it was statistical in 18, 19, 20. It was a full reval in 21, 22, 23, the years 2021, 22, 23, which went up approximately 35%. That's why the property values went up so high, and we were able to lower the tax rate. The next statistical is the one that I just talked about, 24, 25, 26. And then there'll be another statistical after that, 27, 28, 29. And then the full reval will be in 2030, 31, and 32. Obviously, we don't have the numbers that those three revals are going to be. We have no idea what those numbers go up, down, whatever. People do ask sometimes, can it go down? The answer is yes. We had a statistical right before the 2018, 19, 20, where the property values went down 5.9%. So that's the information on the reval process. That's it.
All right, thank you, Jim.
So I just want everyone to know that we are sending a very plain vanilla postcard coming to a mailbox near you. I think it's coming out today, tomorrow. But I did have someone sent me a mailing, and then I got calls from residents. They're concerned about who paid for the fancy postcard we got over the weekend from SK United, and they wanted to know, their question was, did taxpayer money get used to pay the postage and the postage on that card? I had no idea. I said I would be happy to ask.
So I got one of those postcards. Someone dropped it off in my office today. I don't know. I didn't know it was coming out, and I don't know who paid for it.
Okay.
All I know is the postcard that you authorized. I have that data, but I don't know who paid for that one or
Okay.
where it came from.
Would you be able to ask the school department if that was
Sure.
funded? I'm trying to be as neutral as possible. People have a lot of passion about the topic, so I just want to assure them that if we know it's not the school department.
You got the chair of the school building committee saying it wasn't.
Okay.
So I happen
was
to know
parents.
it was funded through an SK United group, advocates toward approving the high school bond referendum. It was not funded by the town. This town council in no way played a part in
I
the sending
know.
of that mailer. That happened totally independent of the council and
Right.
town operations.
That's why I wanted to bring it up, because people said, who paid for it? And I said, we did not authorize that. That's not our vanilla postcard that's going out. And they said, well, did the town? No. So I wanted to have it out in the public.
Yes, absolutely. The only thing that the town is sending is very neutral. Anything that you receive that's at all partisan is not affiliated with this body here in any way.
I just want to put it out there, what people are asking me, and want everyone to hear the same question. So, and then my other question about the reval, Jim, I took the notes. So you're having two statisticals in a row?
Yes. So it's a 9-year period. There's two. If you just do 9 years and you start on day one, 2 statisticals, 1 full. The full is required by state law every 9 years.
Okay.
That's the way it goes. 2 statistical, 1 full. 2 statistical,
All right.
1 full.
We good? We good?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. All right, that's going to move us to item 10, public comments, formerly known as comments from interested citizens. At this point, I invite anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to come on to the microphone. We're just going to ask you to introduce yourself, and we'll limit you to 5 minutes. First come, first serve. Come on up.
Jim O'Neill, Wakefield. Couple questions, Mr. President. either direct to you or direct to Brian. I don't know if he wants to come up. I wanted to write a few notes, but has to do with PAYGO. And frankly, the questions that I get out in the public, I no longer can answer how PAYGO comes into play here. I think Brian's done a great job here with a proper estimate in our world of tax exempt and taxable bonds at 3.5% for 20 years. What's confusing here is the PAYGO is not in the $150 million bond calculation for interest and principal, but after those numbers are in place, the PAYGO is added to the state is going to contribute to us and subtracted from what the town will pay. So what is PAYGO? How was it born? How does it even come into play here?
Brian, Sylvia, come on up here. Jim, we'll do our best to toll your time while you ask questions, but we're also going to try to keep it to the 5 because we have people in the audience who also want to ask questions. But
Fair enough, yep. But I don't know if Brian heard me, because what I just said, Brian, I said congrats on the 3.5% prediction, knowing the Rhode Island tax exempt world. But the bond itself, with the principal and interest at 3.5%, it comes afterwards that the state contribution uses the PAYGO money and ups their contribution and, of course, lowers the town participation. But I'm trying to figure out, where was PAYGO born? Why didn't it ahead of time? Why aren't we using a $140 million bond issue? How does PAYGO operate here? I can't answer anyone on this one. And especially last week, we were talking about maybe PAYGO and the owner's risk. That maybe we could have done a $135 million bond. But PAYGO is my question. Where was it born? How does it work? Why isn't it part of the bond up front and not after the principal and interest is figured out? Oh, geez, see. Okay, well, I can't write a note. I'd be happy to sit down there.
Okay, I'm not entirely sure where PAYGO started. It's been around for a number of years at this point. Probably 5, 10 years. I'm not sure how long PAYGO has been around. PAYGO, we have not taken action on that because at this point, as you know, we don't have a final amount on the project. It could be, until June comes around and we have an actual amount, PAYGO has been left separate because if the project comes in north of 150, the town has an option to use that PAYGO to increase the amount and use that and complete the project. The town council will have full authority over the PAYGO, whether it's used to pay down the debt. So if say the project comes in at 150 million and we get 9 million in PAYGO, the town council has the authority to issue $141 million in bonds rather than 150. That's certainly within their rights. Or these funds could be used for other capital needs that are around the town. They were intended for seed money to get the project started in terms of architectural design, things of that nature. It can be used for some of the upfront costs. It can be used to, the town could elect to use that money instead of issuing the bond anticipation notes. It's really creates flexibility for the town early on in the early phases of this. And you'll have those options along the way, how these funds are used, whether it be not issuing the bands and instead of using the bands maybe 1 year, you could use that PAYGO money to float the funds. You could lower the amount that you issue, or you could put the funds towards existing capital needs throughout the town. Those are the options of this town council, once again, if the project passes, and then we get an amount in June on what the project is.
all right, thank you, Brian. You got it, Jim?
I guess I'll go home and study this on clerk base. Okay, so the $150 million, if it's exceeded, it comes into play. Okay, so we don't have to ask for waivers and whatnot.
At that point, again, the town would have options. The town could certainly value engineer the project down to 150. The town could, say it comes, again, a hypothetical, say the project comes in at 155 million. The town could use some of the PAYGO funds. There are options there as well.
Okay, so this is free money. We would not be paying any principal and interest to town to the state. Free money.
Correct. It's considered part of our state aid. It's just upfront money, part of our state aid.
Okay. Now, instead of paying the 3.5 3.5%, 4% on the bank anticipation notes. Can this money be used if it's no cost to us for those 3 years, the $7.5 million for the 3 years of bands?
You can, I don't think you wouldn't last, say, the first year of bands, we'd actually be borrowing, it's anticipated right now, we'd be borrowing
35, whatever it is.
25, 35 million, so to cover that, and the interest on that would be $1 million. So we could, I don't know how we would get that from our budget, from our left field.
Okay.
What the budget may be, can we get by that first year with 9 million and use that and not do a bands? That will have to be worked out at a later time. Or maybe we reduce the amount of the need for the bands and we use this. That's, again, options, but not known at this time.
Do the bands have to get rides approval, or is that
Nope.
a town position?
Town position. The town council, if they elect, would be issuing them on their authority.
All right, but that money, the 9 million plus, is not escrowed to us already where
No.
we could? Okay, all right. Whoa,
Jim, you got some studying to do.
I should have studied my gap rules in accounting.
Jim, you can come Monday when we do the budget adoption and ask again.
Okay, but I just,
Thank you. All right, anyone else wish to speak? If I could just come on up.
Bill McCusker, Matunic, and with Friends of the Saugatucket, and all the important discussion that was made. I just wanted to report on a lighter note, well, really not, but we did have our Earth Day cleanup this weekend between Ministerial Road Group and our group. Between Ministerial Road, this was 33 years, and Bill Wallace has been attended every one of them, and he turned 95 years old, and he had a significant amount of trash picked up on Ministerial Road in the middle of the rain. And yesterday, we had about 45 volunteers going through all over Wakefield. We picked up 787 pounds of trash. We do this twice a year. We even go out in the river throughout the wintertime. So it's everything's looking cleaner, but it's not like the litter bugs are getting any better. They're just as busy as we are picking them up. And I wanted to thank the Parks Department and the Highway Department for taking the trash. I do realize most of the stuff that we found was on the town right away, and it's better for the taxpayers when volunteers go out and pick them up because you don't have to spend resources on it. So we have a good working relationship, and I just wanted to thank the Highway Department and Parks Department and wanted you folks to know that.
Excellent. Thank you, Bill. All right, anyone else wish to speak? Bob, come on up.
Ooh, wow. Anyway, it's been an interesting meeting. On that whole part with Brian and all you asking questions, I want you to know that I heard every word and I understood everything, except I don't know anything about the economics of all that. I don't mean I understood it that way, but I understood the sentences and the concerns that were being voiced by different members of the council. And the word "if" comes to mind when you're dealing with that kind of money. And when you're dealing with 20 years, you can talk about this as long as you want. Nobody knows what's going to happen in the next 20 years. But I think we can do it. I think the town can do what you're trying to do. It's just that, you can talk yourself. No matter what you think right now, reality will take over. As simple as that. I'd like to make a just quick comment about one of the original things that you were talking about today, that the bridge, putting protective things on the bridges. Well, I'm for any kind of protective thing, but I would wonder what the calculation of what it will cost to do that, and if that money were somehow able to be distributed to education about believe it or not, the phone. I listened to a great program about 2 weeks ago. Somebody's written a book. And I heard the best explanation that I've ever heard about what the phone has done to our young people. Not only and a lot to girls, but a lot also to the very young. It's sort of destroying what we would like to see as real communication. I think that there's no easy answers. This gentleman was asked, what could we do? And as far as the young people are concerned, you'd have to get neighborhood parents together and allow their children to play together unsupervised, so they could actually know what making decisions about. If somebody pushes you, what do you do? Kids are so protected, so overprotected now. I've thought this way for years, but it's all coming out now. People that study this stuff are seeing what's happening. And with young girls, one of the big problems there is, it's pretty hard to talk. I don't know what girls think, actually, that much about this. But usually, back a ways, you'd have like 4 or 5 or 6 really good friends. Well, now, with this phone thing, all of a sudden, you might have 35 or 40 talking about you, thinking about you, making comments about you. I only know right now one girl that hanged herself Christmas Eve quite a few years ago, a personal friend of ours, a family that was a personal friend of ours. Beautiful girl. I never would have guessed it in a million years. Anyway, but people are really looking at this right now, this type of thing, and there are people that know at least what's going on, but there's a very difficult thing to turn it around. So it's something I think about a lot, and I'm going to leave, we got a minute left? I'm doing good, because I could get going, but I'm not going to get going. I'm just going to say that in the last 6 or 7 months, I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people, and they were not people that I knew, but I was fortunate enough to get a conversation going. And most of them would last 20 or 30 minutes. But I have had some conversations recently that lasted 3 hours. And I came back with one of my grandsons took a ride to New Hampshire with me. He felt I needed some company, and he was right. But we talked on both directions when we went and when we came back. The whole trip, which is over 4 hours. And I got a real feel for how complicated our world is in their eyes. And that's it. 2 seconds, 1 second.
All right, thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Bob, there's a great book you'd be interested in. Sorry, Andrew. There's a great book you'd be interested in. It's called Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell, and it addresses just what you're talking about.
Well, I'll look for it.
Come on up, Andrew.
All right, hello. Andrew Holt from South Kingstown. Did not intend to speak this evening, but since the subject of SK United came up, I felt obligated to introduce myself or reintroduce myself. So I'm Andrew Holt. I'm co-president of SK United. It is a community organization that is concerned with the future of our town and the future of our schools. The mailer is intended to counteract some of the misinformation that we see flying around about the school project. It was best informed from the knowledge we had at the moment that we were creating that mailer and asking questions to the school building committee, and then also coming to these meetings and listening to what's going on and trying to get it out to the town. And Deb, thank you for appreciating my design work. That was my design, so I apologize if it looked a little fancier than normal. That is a former profession of mine, so that's where that came from. Community supported. We did a GoFundMe campaign. We've also been raising funds with other events around town. On this Saturday, we will have we're working together with a group of people, pulling together a car parade and also a rally at the high school. And so we'll be continuing to promote our message and what we're hoping for the future of the town and for the future of the schools. We're also behind the Yes SK signs around town. We are choosing to stay off of social media and staying out of kind of the riffraff of social media and more engaging in these types of forums. But that's where SK United comes from. It's also a group that started in the referendum last spring and carried over from that program. So.
All right. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak? All right, we're going to move on. Next, we got communications. A is a letter dated March 11, 2024 from Bill McCusker, President, Friends of the Saugatucket, requesting that signage be installed with the names of rivers and streams the town roads cross over. Bill, come on up.
Again, with all the importance that's going on tonight, this is a small request, but Friends of the Saugatucket would like to draw attention to the rivers and the streams. We seem to drive all over town and not really understand where the water is and where it goes. We did this, Dennis Migno is my vice president. He and I represented South Kingstown, the Wild and Scenic Stewardship Council, and we did the same program with them. And you, the town council, decided to have a sign made for the Chepuxet River at Dugway Bridge, and the state went over, took care of the Escapog, the Chepuxet, and the Queen River with their own signages. We're requesting that the town does the same with the 4 crossings at the Saugatucket, one on Silver Lake Ave, one on Church Street, one on Saugatucket Road, and one on Broad Rock. And then look into doing our tributaries of Rocky Brook on Railroad Ave and Indian Run Brook at Columbia, Spring, School, and Church. That way people they know where the water's going and maybe take a little bit more interest and a little bit more understanding of an awareness of the water bodies that we have. Because it's the rivers that's the reasons why we're here. And I drove around with somebody the other day that had no clue that we were going over the Saugatucket on Church Street, and I think a sign would help. So I'm hoping the town council will honor our request. I know that the highway department has the ability, because I worked for the town for 30 years and I used to make the signs. So unless something's changed, in fact, I'm sure the technology got much better. So I'm hoping that the town council will request this.
All right, thank you, Bill. Any
Not a
questions?
question. I've been to that shop. It is a cool sign shop.
Oh, yeah.
It really is a cool place, and they have some fun signs on the wall too, so it seems like a pretty easy request to me from what I've seen in that shop.
Well, you'd be happy I'm not doing the signs anymore, because Steve Alford asked me why Silver Lake Avenue said Sliver Lake Avenue. That was my misspelling, so. But, well, I hope you honor the request, and thanks.
Thank you, Bill. All right. Perhaps we can refer to the manager's office. They can come back to us with a proposal here on what we can do and how to do this.
Yes, and Bill, maybe I'll hook you up with someone at your former place over there, and we'll figure out exactly what rivers we're talking about and how many signs and where you'd like them.
I just want to thank you, Bill, for always bringing up the other issues. I think sometimes we get other issues just take up all the oxygen in the room, and I think you do represent a lot of the values that we have in the community to appreciate the natural beauty around us. So I want to thank you for always coming up to the microphone with good stuff.
And thank you for giving us something easy that we can do in one night and make everybody happy about. So that's really nice.
Bill, we got your back. All right. It's going to move us now, item B. An email dated April 12, 2024 from Mark DeMorinville, Chairman, Sustainability Committee, requesting support for passage of the 2024 Building Decarbonization Act, House Bill H7617 and Senate Bill S2952. Mark, come on up.
Turn on your...
All right, so tell us what we're dealing with here. What does the bill entail? What is good about it? Why do you support it? And just walk us through it.
Okay, I'll give an overview of it. So the Building Decarbonization Act right now is being considered by the General Assembly. It's a piece of legislation that would help Rhode Island meet its some of the mandates in the Act on Climate that was passed several years ago. Specifically, it would curtail the fossil fuel use of buildings, which account for 30% of emissions in our state. So a large percentage of fossil fuel emissions in our state. There's 2 major sections of the bill. The first is that the Office of Energy Resources would create benchmarking and building performance standards for large existing buildings. And that would help the owners of those large buildings track their energy use over time. And then OER would actually have assistance for owners so that they could lower their emissions and meet the standards over time. So it would be a way for the state to support the very large buildings in our state becoming more fuel efficient. The second piece of the legislation is phasing in tiers of all electric new construction. So over time, the first would be that any very large new buildings would have to be built what's called electric ready. So it would just prevent future costs of having to retrofit buildings for an all-electric system. It would allow for municipalities, and this is the part that the Sustainability Committee really liked, it would allow for municipalities, if they so choose, to pass ordinances that would require new buildings to be all electric. It does not mean that every municipality has to pass that. But if they choose to, if they did that right now, they would almost certainly face litigation for doing that. So this bill would basically protect municipalities from protecting them from that litigation by allowing each town to pass a requirement if they so choose. So we're not here as a sustainability committee asking you right now, maybe in the future we will, but we're not asking you right now to do that, but we're just asking you to show support as a town for this bill so that should the town or should any town want to pass an ordinance of that nature, they won't face litigation. There are exemptions, of course, like hospitals and biomedical facilities and things like that that can't be all electric right now. They would be exempt from that. And it's really, the first phases of this would really be about very large buildings, not individual residences. I think I covered everything there. If you have any questions.
Right. Thank you. Any questions?
Just a couple of quick things for the benefit of the public. Sure. I read the bill as well as your email. Thank you very much.
It was Mark's email, but you're welcome.
Okay, sorry. Well, collectively, your
yes.
email and the bill. As I read it, it's phased in for very large buildings. It was 50,000 and then 25,000 as it rolls out.
Yes.
So we're talking huge buildings are the only ones that it applies to in the first place. And the second point to what you were discussing about options for municipalities, as I read the bill, it also would give the municipality the flexibility to introduce the program similarly where you roll out different requirements over different years, so you're not hitting, a small mom and pop shop right off the bat. Yeah. This is I think it's a laudable effort to bring us closer to the Act on Climate goals. But it obviously would take a lot more work for the municipalities to actually structure that. But the bill, frankly, I think is a good one.
Yeah, it's basically enabling legislation, right? It enables or allows for towns to do what they want to do without fear of litigation holding things up.
I would just like to make a general comment, and I'm 100% on board and very excited about anything we can do to help meet our climate goals. So just to start off with that right from the start, one thing when we talk about going to all electric buildings, I went to Rhode Island Days in DC last week, and we heard from the CEO of American Clean Power, and also the Vice President of Government Affairs at the League of Conservation Voters. And they talked to us a lot about electric stuff, about wind power, about like the real push that we're all seeing in the country to go to clean power. And so one of the questions that I asked was in our town and actually all over the place is we've noticed a big increase in our utility rates. And so what I was told is that part of the challenge now is that we need to have like a lot of natural gas to produce it's a complicated process, I guess. And so we want to make sure that we have the infrastructure in place. And it sounds like, like this is really geared towards a particular, very large buildings. But in general, I think I'm concerned that not just for this, but that we don't get too far ahead of ourselves. And we really need the infrastructure to be able to support the effort to get to a cleaner place in the environment. And so this pertains to a lot of things like transportation, for instance, electric buses and vehicles. So it's all sort of connected in this need for increased infrastructure. So that's all I had to say.
I think I hope that the increased infrastructure is coming, given that the state's goal is to get to zero carbon by 2050.
And actually, it's not just a goal, because Act on Climate makes it a mandate. So, and we're behind, as a state, we're behind on reaching what is set as a mandate. So I think one of the great things about this legislation is that it's very much focused on new construction, and that's how you push it without, if everyone had to go all electric right now in every there's not the infrastructure for that. But if we roll it out in phases, then that's how we push it in a sustainable way. There's no other word I can use for it except sustainable.
So hopefully that will be a big part of our I know we're going to be discussing the different ways that we might power our high school if it does pass. I mean, I've heard the discussion about geothermal and there's a lot of very exciting possibilities and a lot of money that hopefully we would be able to also tap into. So it's definitely an exciting time.
All right. Thank you, guys. Anything further? Do I hear a motion here?
Motion to approve item 11B in support of House Bill 7617 and Senate Bill S2952.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, that passes 4-1. Thank you. Nice job.
Thank you.
All right, it's going to bring us to item C, an email dated April 13, 2024, from Stephen J. Elmazian, co-chair, Armenian National Committee of Rhode Island, requesting that the town fly the Armenian flag on April 24th to commemorate Armenian Genocide Remembrance Day. Mike Ursullo, going to you on this.
This would be appropriate under your policy.
All right. Any questions? Do I hear a motion? Anything? Go ahead.
Just a question for Susan. In the email, it indicated that the prior councils in South Kingstown for 24 years have approved this. That's correct?
So motion to direct the town staff to fly the Armenian flag on April 24th, and if possible, take a picture and forward it to the Armenian Preservation Society as requested in their email.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. It's going to bring us to item 12, appointments.
Make a resolution to appoint Ms. Craig, Ms. Blessing, and Mr. Rosen to their respective committee assignments. A new appointment for Ms. Craig.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. It's going to bring us to the end here.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion?